Trevor Perry.
Goodness gracious me, Mr. Gross, where on earth do we find ourselves?
For the love of doing this podcast, we are literally in Technoland, which we have no clue about. And I say Technoland, I don't mean some Berlin nightclub. I should really be saying we're in this world of technology, which we haven't got a clue about. But somehow, some way, we've managed to get this working. We're recording. Hopefully it's all coming through for everyone to hear. But do you want to explain where we are?
Well, for those of you familiar with the sunny southern western area of Europe, you will find Mr. Gross and my very good self in the beautiful sunny Algarve in Portugal. We are on the edge of a stunning little town called Algarve, for those of you familiar with the area, probably about 60 clicks west of Faro. And, mate, the weather is sublime.
It certainly is. And just so everyone understands why we're here, obviously I come down here as often as I can, and we dragged Trevor out because we all thought it was about time he got away from his desk. And we've had some good times, haven't we? So thank you for coming to Portugal. And,
thank you, my friend. Thank you for the invite.
And welcome to Season 2, Episode 9. This is our last episode of Season 2. And I think, Trevor, what we're going to do as quickly as we can is just to summarise everything that we've done so far. Obviously, underline why it is that we do this podcast, underline why we are all part of the Guild. And in fact, talking about the podcast and the Guild, the podcast has just become 1 year old, hasn't it?
It has. April the 19th.
Yep. And the Guild
celebrated its birthday.
And the Guild will be officially 1 year old on
June the 3rd. We will make now what has become our annual pilgrimage up to County Hall there in London, courtesy of the superb Edward Peck, who is the CEO of Asset Finance Connect, conferencing and networking organisation, from which we were born. As we mentioned on our very, very first podcast, Edward has very kindly extended an invitation to all the members of the Guild, and we will meet for our AGM in very few weeks' time, David. Quite frightening, really, but looking forward to it.
Yeah, so let's remind everyone, Guild members, June the 3rd, County Hall. What time are we kicking off?
Well, there's an invite there for them for the whole conference, which I thoroughly recommend. I would imagine we'll get going at some point in the afternoon. It will be a closed-door session for Guild members, and we will have an extensive agenda of items and voting, but it's basically setting the agenda for the next 12 months of the Guild and where we're going, and make sure we've got some objectivity and some focus.
So we'll send out an email shortly, won't we? Or you will, more to the point. About this date. We need as many members as we can to be at that AGM. It's very important for everyone that's part of the Guild that we summarise the first 12 months and we agree on how we move forward for the following 12 months, etc., etc. So please make sure you're at the County Hall AGM for Guild members on the 3rd of June.
One important reminder, Dave, if you book the bar for afterwards.
Well, how could I have forgotten? Yes, that's probably one of the first things I did when we had our last steering committee meeting. I got onto All Bar One at Waterloo and said, please book us a private area for us to all drink some beers. And they've come back and it's all paid for and the reservation's been made. So another reason for coming along is to drink some beers.
Should we crack in then with a few memories from Season 2, Dave?
Yeah, go on.
Okay, well, I think we had 4 guests, actually, in chronological order. We kicked off just before Christmas with the amazing Martin Lewis of Evis. And if you remember, he was pioneering in the world of graduation gowns. Our Guild member that was responsible for that introduction, Duncan Payne of Adamantium. And then we went north of the border. Our next guest was the CEO of Carmichael and Baxter Groundworks, the delightful Neil Cameron, introduced to us by Charlie Wilson up there at Asset and General Finance. And then we were blessed with Rory Underwood's company, David. That was a hugely popular episode. We'll talk more about that in a second. And then most recently, and this one seems to be really hitting home, I watch the downloads, as you know, the count, the ticker, if you like, on a daily basis. And the young Joe Regan at Rooted Adventure that one's being downloaded right, left and centre.
Yeah, and in summary, Trevor, again, we keep plugging the cause, but the reason that we're doing this podcast is to make sure that we are representing business owners, hence why we speak to business owners, asking them about their journey and asking them to explain, if it wasn't for gaining access to finance through one of our guild members, potentially, and probably more likely, they wouldn't have been able to have moved the business forward as quickly or at all had it not been for working with a guild member who was able to, first of all, listen to what the requirement was, what type of funding was needed. Once they listened and understood what the business is all about, and more importantly, understood who the people behind the business are, were able to go away and speak to our many lenders that we work with and come up with a suitable best fit product to support that business moving forward. So that's obviously one of the key causes. The other area that we like to focus on is the lenders themselves, wanting to make sure that we understand what the lenders are doing, what their model is, and to ensure that when we provide information to a lender, it's the right lender, and we can hopefully get a relationship with that lender moving forward, that they are able to support the application that we're putting forward. And some of the stories that we've shared in previous episodes is explaining exactly that businesses gaining access to finance is not an easy process.
No, it's not, Dave. I've got a visual in my mind here, and it's very subtle, but it's very important. I'm not sure if everybody's realised this, but I suppose the role of the intermediary is summarised in the emblem of the guild. Really, there's right across the middle. There's like an aqueduct or an arch bridge, and that's what the role of the intermediary is. It's that bridge between the lender and the business owner, and that is a nice visual summary of what the role of the guild member is. And as you rightly say, Dave, in each of those 4 episodes with a different guild member assisting those businesses, they prove that point. How many more examples do we need? Well, the answer is we're going to get a lot more examples.
Yeah.
But, talk to us a little bit about the lender. We ventured up to London recently, didn't we, myself?
We did. And for guild members, I know you're probably aware that we have Stephen Bassett, who's our chairperson, that has a number of conversations going on with the lenders at the moment. Trevor and I felt it was appropriate that we speak to one of the biggest lenders, arguably, in our marketplace at the moment, Funding Circle. They are known probably by more business owners than I'm aware of anyway. When you speak to business owners and you ask them about what their understanding is of the business finance market and the lenders that they've heard of, obviously they've heard of the high street banks, but typically the one lender that everyone's heard of is Funding Circle. And there's a good reason for that. As we know, Trevor, they've spent a lot of time, a lot of effort, put a lot of investment into making sure that Funding Circle is out there, that it's a brand and it's a name that everyone recognises now without doubt. Their marketing is out there. They have a big connection with the Premiership Rugby. They have a lot of marketing initiatives that go direct to business owners and through social media. So they are without a doubt a flagship lender, and we both felt, especially from the feedback that we've got from our members, that we should go and meet them to understand what it is that they're doing. And really, as we said around the table, I mean, just so everyone knows, we met with Rachael Raymond, and she heads up the broker team at Funding Circle, and we met her colleague Ben and Jimmy, one of the business development managers that works with myself and I know other intermediaries. And we sat in that room and we had an open conversation about what Funding Circle have been doing, what they're doing now and what they're going to be doing in the future. But I think, Trevor, one of the main causes for going to meet with them, and it's not just Funding Circle, it's other lenders, is to explain to them what we're seeing and our experiences with businesses. For example, the number of cases that we've all come across where businesses have gone direct to lenders to make an application for finance, which is easily done these days. As we know, there's a lot of media out there that, what's the right word, Trev, provides vernacular that perhaps makes it all sound very easy to gain access to finance, and that's an easy thing for businesses to read, absorb, and think, well, that must be a route that we need to follow. And as we know, that's not always the case.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, Dave. We're in the business of making sure that not only is the intermediary responsible in terms of their guidance to business owners, but lenders also have to take a responsibility to lend responsibly. And, as we've said on many occasions on previous podcasts, business finance is not a one-size-fits-all. Every business is unique. Their circumstances, their trading conditions, their aspirations, but we know what makes them unique. It's the people running them. It was an interesting meeting with Rachael and Ben, and I remember Rachael saying, okay, what is the guild? And I think she had a feeling that it was a trade body. It's not a trade body. We have trade bodies within the business finance environment, and they do what they do. But the guild is unique, and it is unique in respect. It is an organisation of independent businesses, intermediaries, who are largely SMEs themselves, and they are about what David said, what I've been saying. They are the bridge or they should be the bridge between business owners and lenders. And Dave, I know it's very close to your heart, but this direct lending model, yeah, it's fraught with danger.
It is, and again, when we talk about these kind of things, we're not trying to paint a negative picture, because this isn't always the case. Of course, there are businesses that have gained access to finance using those particular routes to market, and that's great. But unfortunately, we know too many situations where businesses have gone to the likes of Funding Circle, and as we said before, many other lenders are the same. And we're not casting a shadow of doom and gloom by any stretch of the imagination. But what we're trying to do is explain to lenders, look, even if we can somehow get you to refer to the fact that before any business gains access to any form of finance stroke debt, please follow an advisory pathway to ensure that you get the best advice before gaining access to any form of finance. Now, if that process is undertaken and either the intermediary or the business owner themselves decides, well, great, I've taken the advice, I've got my own decision to make, and I'll make the decision based on whatever assumption they come to, then that's absolutely fine. At least we've got them to make that choice, and we've made them understand that before you gain access to that debt, that you do speak to people like the guild members who can listen and take time to understand what type of finance they need, most importantly, how much they require, which again can be a bit of a finger in the air sometimes, and then more importantly, ensuring that once we understand that business, then we approach the right lender that we believe will be the best fit for that business. And surely that is the most sensible way of moving forward before you gain any access to debt.
I want to over-labour the point before we start talking a little bit about some of our guests that we've had on, but the fundamental problem, and we've mentioned this a couple of occasions, the direct model provides the business owner with no measurement matrix, if you like. How does that business owner know if that is the right product at the right price at the right time?
Yeah.
There is no measurement of comparability, if you like.
Yeah.
And, the Guild is not a comparison website equivalent in human form. That's not what we're talking about here. The Guild is populated by experienced individuals that are well respected in what they do on a day-to-day basis. And I've done a lot of work, as you know, Dave, on the Guild website, particularly the members site, where we are putting together and have put together a very comprehensive list of funders that the collective members have used in the last 12 months. That's approaching nearly 200 lenders. And do you know what struck me? It struck me that I reckon at least 85 to 90% of those lenders, the vast majority of business owners out there would never have heard of. And that in itself, it's like an accountant, isn't it? It's like an accountant providing advice or guidance. It's like a solicitor. You're paying for the experience that they've got that you haven't got.
Exactly.
A business owner is not a financial expert.
Exactly.
They're not an accountant. Well, they might be, but you know what I'm saying? You know the point I'm saying?
Look, Trevor, we keep saying this. The model exists already. Whether you're gaining legal advice, whether you're gaining financial advice, whether you're gaining any form of advice in life, the business finance process is underserved because the signposting's so poor.
Correct.
I know government are doing something about this. Let's see what happens. I'm not holding my breath, but there is already models out there that make sure that whether it's individual or businesses can have some form of professional support and an advisory service that ensures that before they sign on the dotted line, they know exactly what they're signing. And when we talk about lenders, as we know, Trev, there are so many products, so many different types of interest rates, so many different types of terms and conditions. A lot of lenders want some form of security, others don't. Some people want directors to be homeowners, some others don't. I mean, it's an array. I'm dealing with someone at the moment where we're being offered a combination of rates, one of them to be fixed, one of them to be variable. And that's a conversation that I had with that customer earlier, talking about, well, if we go variable, blah, blah, blah. So do you know what I'm saying? That there's so many things to consider before signing on the line to take on that debt that, my goodness, even the guild members sometimes struggle to understand all the products and all the types of pricing. But that's what we do, and that's why we're trying to get the signpost up to make sure business owners, before they go to the funding circles or before they go to the Close Brothers or wherever lender it is, they have had that advice beforehand. Thereafter, then everything should be managed in accordance with what we're trying to promote here.
And that brings us back to, the guests that we had on during season 2, David. I mean, that is our rather verbose, crusade, our mission, if you like, as we always tend to get involved with. But that is the whole reason we do these things. Let's go back to Martin Lewis again, a very eloquent, capable, educated young man. Started his business on the day he sat there during his graduation ceremony, and not only started his business, but registered the company on that very day. He's gone on and done a tremendously good job in his market. And folks, what we're going to do, and hopefully we're going to get our first guest on from Series 1 very shortly, we're going to revisit all our guests, probably on a 10 to 12 month cycle, and see how they've got on and see where they've got to. And all have agreed so far to do that, which is tremendous.
So to summarise, Martin, as we know, just quickly, I mean, all these episodes are on Spotify or on all the main audio channels that you can access through however means you want to access. But most importantly, Martin, for example, had an idea, didn't know how he was going to finance it, spoke to our guild member, Duncan, who came up with a solution of how best they could move forward to raise funding. That was done. And then we had our next guest, Trevor.
Neil Cameron up there in Fife. And Neil, Neil in the business of romping away there in the groundworks and all that, all that lovely stuff. They've got contracts all over the place. I think by the sounds of it, he's going from strength to strength. He's probably employed 20 people since we last spoke to him. But again, young Charlie Wilson there was our guild member of Asset and General Finance. And one of the things I remember vividly, hence I'm going to say it, Neil said to us, didn't he, that he can ring Charlie and know he'll get sorted and he carry on running his business. And that's exactly what Charlie does for him. Duncan with Martin and Charlie with Neil, the first two examples of guild members being integral to the actual businesses they're looking after.
Absolutely.
And then we got introduced to, and we had a cracking episode with Mr. Rory Underwood, MBE, Deputy Lieutenant, as he corrected me, Deputy Lieutenant of Leicestershire, and his business wingman. Dave, it was a privilege to spend some time with Rory. As many of our listeners said, we did something for the first time. We actually shut up and let him speak.
He did speak. And one of the things that I loved about what Rory was talking about was his business, which is ultimately what this podcast is all about. And again, if you listen to that episode, you'll hear how we speak about some of the challenges that he was having as a business owner. And as a result of what we spoke about, then we had this discussion, didn't we, after the podcast?
Yeah.
But he realised exactly what the guild was doing and how he was doing it. And therefore, he wanted to be more aligned with what we were doing and hopefully help the cause.
And he did. He actually delivered on that. He has become, and we're delighted to say he'll be at our AGM in a few weeks' time. He is our first honorary ambassador and the first of a few, I think, that are going to come along it. And as I say, that podcast is still being downloaded and it's a good one. And, I've listened to it a few times myself. I can almost pinpoint the moment when Rory actually not so much realizes it wasn't a great, Damascus Road experience, but he just articulates it so well and basically said, well, why wouldn't a business come to someone in the guild? Why would they not trade on that experience or look to trade on the experience? And he's just put it better than you and I could, Dave. He's just edified Martin and Neil in their previous examples. But hey, I'll tell you what, Joe Regan, he impressed me, that lad. 25 years old, with his brother, yes, with the inspiration he got from his mum, but now giving all these children life experiences, life memories, and that one is being downloaded very, very heavily.
And you know what, Trevor? We go on about it, and maybe we shouldn't, but maybe we should, because the comments that we get back on all the episodes that we do are very supportive of everything that goes on, not just with the podcast and the guild, but more importantly, business owners sharing their feedback. And certainly with Joe, we did have a lot of feedback. I mean, one of the comments in particular talked about how charismatic and how energized Joe came across on that podcast, and clearly very, very passionate about what he does, both him and his brother. And the comment that came back from this particular business owner was, well done to the guild. If it wasn't for you and the work that you've done, then that particular business, as we said earlier, may not have been able to go forward quite as quickly or at all.
You've hit the nail on the head, Dave. And, I'm sat here with those 4 guests written down on a piece of paper to remind me and get them in the right order. So, look at their marketplaces, look at the variation, graduation gowns, groundworks, management consultancy and guidance, and running school children's residential and adventure camps. How different. But look at what ties it all together. People are passionate about running their business who have basically turned around and said, I can't be all things. I can't be, master of everything. I need help. They might not have said exactly, I need help, but boy, have they got it. And I think in all 4 instances, they got it. And I'm thinking my dear friend Neil Baxendale or Joe Regan at Rooted there. Neil got in his car when that lad and his brother and his business really were hardly out the traps, and spent 3, 4, 5 hours. Look at them. I saw that picture. I don't know if you saw it. They put up, Dave, we were talking about that podcast village, and I think he got a twilight on night.
Podcast village.
The pod village, and it is stunning. It is absolutely stunning. And imagine as a 7-year-old or 10-year-old or 12-year-old going romping around there for a week. Good grief,
I've got this business idea. I'm writing down now. Podcast village. So we'll go back to Joe and we'll just say, look, can we work with you on the pod model, but we want to turn it into, instead of school children coming along for those lovely residential trips, we'll have podcast enthusiasts or whatever it is.
Indeed.
We can probably go along to that ourselves and learn a few things.
Talking about a little bit of fun that we've also had along the way, the mugs, the podcast and guild mugs.
We've almost run out, haven't we?
We pretty much, we ordered 3 trillion. No, it wasn't quite that amount. But I always refer to this one. We had a personal agent that ferried one across the Atlantic to our dear friend and supporter, Randy Haig, there at LTI Technology Solutions. He's always there supporting, reposting and making comments. So, Randy, I hope you haven't broken it yet. I hope you've not left it in the dishwasher for someone else to steal it from you, my friend, but enjoy. But no, they've appeared all over the place. We might order another load of mugs. Don't know. Might have a different initiative in season 3 day. So, look, that sort of leads us into, man to man, what do you want to achieve with season 3, David? What would you like to get out of see us get out of season 3 with the podcast?
So world tour. So I think we just go around to all the countries that we've been downloaded in. That'll be fun. Yeah. And then just sort of general stardom and fame. I think, just lead the life of, podcast megastar. No, I think, as we've always said, as far as we're aware, this is the only podcast dedicated to our industry. And we're focusing on, as we've always said before, business owners. We're focusing on lenders and responsible lending. I think we've done quite a lot of work over season 1, season 2, but ultimately everything we do is not for our benefit, Trev. It's for those that we're representing. And
yeah, you're right, Dave. I mean, I'm conscious when unfortunately I have to leave the sunny southern reaches of the Algarve and I get back, I am going to put together a response to the government call for information on something that they're doing at the moment. SME access to finance in business, hugely topical.
Yeah, so season 3 really needs to be a bigger, better production, and we're working on plans for that. Funding is obviously something that we're very grateful for. There are people contributing towards this, and we're very grateful for that. I know that there are other parties that we're talking to that hopefully can provide us with some support, because funding ultimately will drive it, So that's what we're going to try and aim and do. And then we can probably try and look at getting some kind of visual, which we know typically.
God help us.
We know typically that's something that podcasts are successful with. And guidance. I mean, it's just learning. Everything's a learning curve. We're only 12 months in, and we're looking at ways to improve the podcast, and we'll give it some thought and speak to those that are helping us in the background and see if we can come up with a better production.
And you know what, Dave? I think you've hit the nail on the head with everything you've said there. For me, if we can get further engaging guests on that are half as interesting as as all of the people we've had on so far, we'll be cracking on and we'll be cooking on gas, which I'm really looking forward to. It is obvious to me that you and me bagging on, not people really giving monkeys about what you and I have got to say. But when we have a guest on and that guest is compelling, it's amazing how I see the downloads build and build and build. I mean, okay, it doesn't go viral, but whatever viral means, but I can see it makes a major difference. Listen, David mentioned the financing there. Don't be afraid to log on to the podcast website, which is BFM, Business Finance Matters. So the initials bfm.buzzsprout.com. You'll find it, in addition to all the episodes on the public's platforms, you'll find them all on our website. You'll also find feedback on there. If you go to Spotify, there's a little send us a text tab, so you can send us a text and with feedback from any of our episodes from your phone. That's very easily done. And of course, if you want more information on the Guild, then that's a very simple website as well to remember. That's bfpguild.org, BFP Guild, Business Finance Professional Guild.org, BFP Guild.org. So cracking stuff. So Dave, look, I'm going to say personal thank you to you, my friend. We're now into our second year. We're out of nappies. We're looking to see if we can get from crawling to standing up by the sofa, metaphorically speaking, of course. But listen, you have amazed me with quite frankly, your ability to put these things together. I never thought it possible.
Neither did I.
Sterling work. You do a sterling job, mate, and I know some of the trials and tribulations that you go through to get that done. But equally, I know the amount of time that you take to put them together, and it's amazing, mate. And thank you.
Look, this is a Guild podcast. We know that we have a number of members that we hope we represent well on this podcast. Call it a labour of love. There are a lot of passions that run around our industry, and hopefully you and I are just encapsulating some of it. And if we're doing anything right, we're hopefully broadcasting information that serves our marketplace well. And if we're not, Trevor, we have had a bit of feedback from some people, but typically it's all positive, and we ask for you to continue to comment about what it is that we can do to improve or even add value to what we're all doing. It's a members-driven podcast, and we're just here.
We're all in this together, aren't we? The lenders, the customers, business owners, the intermediaries. You'd like to think we've all got the same objective. We will continue on we keep calling it crusade. I would like to see, and I'm sure we can invite a few more lenders on and get their perspective, and I'm sure we will do that in season 3. But for me, Dave, I want to continue to be fulfilled and uplifted by some of the stories from our members, customers, and what and how they've achieved them. And do you know what's interesting? It's funny, isn't it? Because we don't actually invite the member on. We just go direct to the end, go direct to the customer. I think that dynamic works.
Great. Look, the Algarve sunshine awaits. Thank you very much for everyone's support. As we keep saying, please follow, comment, blah, blah, blah. You know the drill. And we'll wrap this up now and thank everyone. And Trevor, again, thank you for everything you've done. And if we can just end this in our usual way, and I'll say goodbye to you.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. Thank you, folks. Goodbye to me, and it's goodbye to him.
Bye now.